Sounds good.
That's good. So you're probably all getting that pop-up box now.
Okay, welcome everyone to today's Limnoseries. And I am the host today, Katalin Patanai, and I will be just introducing briefly GSA in general, and then our speaker today, Dr. Bill Perry. So can you guys see my screen right now?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so just a couple slides about what GSA is. So GSA stands for the Glion Student Association. And here we can see the members. So there's a GSA Chair, Rosie Chapina, co-chairs Jenna Robinson and Sofia La Fuente, and our GSA advisor, Catherine O'Reilly. So GSA is really run by students, and it's, basically for students to get involved in Glion and other activities as well. And so here, what we do here in the workshop committee is basically set up workshops, just like this one, the Limnoseries workshop, but also workshops during the in-person meeting like the one in New York, but also the one coming up in Poland. So the workshop committee is responsible for that. And then there are two other committees, sorry. One is the communications committee, which manages the Glion blog. If you've ever read those short articles, those are put together by the communications committee. They host GSA seminars and also coordinate the Slack channel. And then there's a third one, which is the poster committee, which prepares and plans the poster sessions at the Glion meetings. So the reason why I'm also talking about these three committees is that there are always opportunities to join these committees. So if you want to get more involved in Glion, or you want to take advantage of, some of the skills that you can acquire and meet new people, then please go ahead and reach out to either one of these members that you saw, and just get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to talk to you how you can get more involved in the GSA. And today we're very, very excited to have this really practical and I think very useful and fun workshop hosted by Dr. Bill Perry. So here I just have a quick overview of his experience. So as an undergraduate, Bill did studies on paleolimnology of Brazilian, Panamanian, and Siberian lakes with Mike Miller and the University of Cincinnati. And then he worked at Toolik Lake, LTER, in northern Alaska. And basically he earned his master's degree, and afterwards he moved to Notre Dame University after his master's. And basically he worked with Gary Lamberti and Jeff Fender on hybridization of rusty crayfish in lakes and streams of northern Wisconsin in and around the Trout Lake Biology Station. Afterwards, in 2000, which is when he started at Illinois State University, and he has worked on biogeochemistry of agricultural streams and the influence of watershed management practices of the streams and reservoirs. So he's collaborated on several other limnology projects with Catherine O'Reilly. And on this picture, we can also see his most reliable field partner, his dog, Bella. So with that, I would like to give the screen over to Dr. Bill Perry, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you so much.
Great. So as I've been doing this, I've tried to learn new things, new tools, and next year I'll be in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, trying to learn AI and machine learning with a big biologist or a person down there, and actually try to learn Python, which is scaring me to death. Was everybody able to get the package and the library and project downloaded and everything? Everybody good with that? All good? Okay, good. So I'll share my screen. If you need to download it again, I've put in the chat page a link to that if you haven't had a chance. Across the table from me, I have a student that is a graduate student and has been working a lot in a lot of the fun classes that I teach here to try to play with new data sets. When you open this project, you should have clicked on the R project. If you don't use projects, this is probably one of the best ways to be able to share data and code across a whole range of people. So I've really found that to be one of the best tools that I've learned in my past. In all of my projects, Corinna at University of Wisconsin-Madison had kind of taught me to use this skeleton of data, documents, figures, scripts, and themes to have every package be about the same. Am I not sharing the screen? It's just my, what? Hold on. Stop share. Share screen. Should be desktop 2. Share. Does that work? Okay. So you should be seeing something that looks like this, I hope. When you open the project, this has been a problem when I've taught a couple of classes, you should see the name of the project up here. If you don't, the scripts actually won't work well, and you'll cause a lot of problems. Now, the data sets that I've downloaded have come from the Tulik LTER site, and I did some simplification of them and some renaming of some of the variables. And if you ever want to see any kind of pivoting from wide to long format or things like that, that's all in this original file called 00prep. We're going to start with zooplankton. The code for this works pretty easily, and it had a lot less typing in it. So as you want to type along with this, I'm going to do one. If you want the full scripts, they're here. And it's also my cheat sheet. So I'm going to copy this over here. So in case I mess something up, I can go back and not panic that I can't remember what I'm doing. So we're going to load the libraries. These are libraries I use pretty much in every script. And I think I gave you the key to challenge 1. Unfortunately, I was fixing it and I uploaded the correction. If we use read_CSV to read in this file, and we don't have the other text that's over here, what comes in is something that looks like this. We've got site, depth, and there's spaces and capitalization. And if you click here, what you'll notice is that date comes in as a character file. So one of the packages, and this is kind of some of the main pathways I use in reading in files from other people or doing things. The challenge was, how do you clean up column names? Anybody think of 2 ways that you might clean up a column name with this? If you were doing this on your own, what ways might you do that? And if you can unmute, this is kind of hopefully going to be more interactive, so I don't just walk through code. What would you do if you were doing this on your own? And you can put it in chat, you can unmute, whatever you'd like to do. You don't have to if you don't want to. So we could use column names. Freya says this. You could use rename. One of the problems I ran into was when people put micromoles or micrograms in there. The micro symbol from a PC and the micro symbol from a Mac are actually different characters. So getting rid of those characters is a real problem. And this library janitor that's right here has a really, amongst many of its great functions, it has a way that you can add in clean names. And if you do this, what it does automatically is make everything lowercase, gets rid of all of the special symbols, and adds an underscore for the number here. And if your numbers are depths like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meters, it puts an X in front of it, so it makes it easier to work with. So the clean names package out of Janitor is one of the coolest things that I've run into recently. The other thing that's been really helpful is Lubridate. And maybe some of you have done it, maybe some of you haven't. Maybe some people are using as POSIX CT or converting it that way. If we want to convert date into a real date in R, what you can do is add in a pipe and say mutate date equals, and all you have to do is type in the order that it is. So this is month, day, year, date. And it will automatically convert, and I'm just piping this into the read statement, and it automatically converts date into the date format from year, month to day. And if you had a date time function, you could add in month, day, year, underscore hour, minute, or hour, minute, second. This one doesn't have that, and it would cause some problems. If you have a mix, so if you ever do this in the future and you have a mix of dates, parse date function in Lubridate will actually try to get its best guess as to what the format is. And if it's a jumble, it will do date and time and date mixes and all kinds of things. It works really well. Another challenge. What if you wanted to get summary statistics? For this, we've got the sites. This is a lake called N2 control. There's an N2 treatment. Oh, actually, a question from Valkenberg. Does it care if it's a 4-digit year or a 2-digit year? No, I don't think it does. I think it will actually sort that out. And if it doesn't, the parse date will figure out that mixed date. If it's a 2-date and 4-date mixed, the Lubridate parse date function will figure that out for you. So that's one of the cool things about the parse date function if you've got really kind of messy stuff. What if you wanted to get summary stats? So if we look at this data set, we've got different sites or lakes, how deep the tow for zooplankton was. I didn't do any corrections. The date of the sample, the year, the species, or they call it species or type, and how many they counted. And there's a lot of NAs in there. How would you get summary statistics quickly? And you can put it in chat. I'm trying to get interaction. You could use summarize. Yep. Summary. Yep. There's another package out there called Skimmer, which I found to be even better. So if we take z.df, and everybody knows what pipe is, right? This is the command that takes the data frame and passes it into other commands on the way down. We could type skim. If I could type today, it's too early. We can type skim and it gives a summary of the entire data frame. It shows how many rows and how many columns. It shows what type of column type frequency there is. It gives us a number of missing, a completion rate, kinds of questions about that. And it also gives summary statistics with mean, standard deviation, and the range 0 to 100, and all the quartiles and a little histogram. The really cool thing about this is, what if you wanted to get only the data by the species or by number, and we wanted to group it by lake? The neat thing here is we can type in group by, and we could say site, or site and species, and then pipe that into skim. And then it gives you over here the number and counts by lake for Bosmina, and it gives, oh, this is the depth, sorry, the year, number, and this is the number of different species by depth, and it gives a little histogram of all the counts. So this is a good way to look through data and kind of get an idea of what things look like. Now, you've all done graphs, right? So what if we wanted to make just a graph of only tulic data, and we wanted to plot date on the X, number on the Y, and we wanted each species to be a different color with points and lines? What would that graph look like? And can you think of a quick way to only get Tulic Lake? See if we can get questions. So here, if we type z.df, and I try to use shortened things, you could do select. Select would give you the columns, but if we wanted to filter out of the site here only Tulic Lake, we can take the data frame pipe it into a filter statement. And we could say site equal quote Tulik. And then we can filter, and then we can pipe that into ggplot, AES. These are the aesthetics. So you can type X equals date if you want. I never do. Y equals number. And then color equals species. And then add in geom underscore point. And add in geom underscore line. So we should get a graph that looks something like this. I moved my computer. And this is just the Tulik data. And it has the traditional ggplot theme, which a lot of my colleagues hate. What if you wanted to change this theme? What's the quickest way you could change the theme statement up here so it looks more classic or doesn't have the background? What would you do? Or you just wanted it black and white. You could do theme black and white. So we could say plus theme underscore black and white parentheses. So it turns it to black and white. You could do theme void. And you get a really interesting graph, or a theme classic, yeah. So these have a lot of built-in settings that you can use, and you can build on top of these, or you can set up your own theme. And the first goal to teach in this course is how do you make your own theme? What if we had theme Gleon? In my packages, I usually have a theme for manuscripts, and I have a theme for posters, and I have a theme for online presentations. So what's the easiest way? And what we want to use is ggthemeAssist. I had a graduate student that I was teaching R to a couple of years ago, and I showed him this trick, and I thought he was going to cry. And then he went back to his advisor and said, "Why didn't you show me this?" And he goes, "Well, you need to suffer." So my goal is not to have you guys suffer so much. So how would you figure out how to change the themes? And what we'll do is ggthemeAssist. If you highlight the code like this and you click add-ins, and I've got a couple things in here that are really kind of fun, but the one we want to use is down here called ggthemeAssist. And if you click this, it pops up a new point and click window that allows you to modify things, and a lot of things it will change as you do it. So if you don't like this panel background that's gray, you can click here and go up and say, I want this to be none, and it goes away. And if you want the grids to be gone, you can click blank for those. You can click over to the axes, and you can say, well, really, we want a solid axis line. And you could say we want solid axis ticks, and we really want them to be black. Someplace up here, my alphabetical system is not working, and either is that, so we'll make them gray 15. And you can make them bigger. So you can do things that are kind of crazy. You can go over to the titles and labels. You can adjust essentially most of the theme settings from in here. And when you click done, it adds them over here as a new set of themes. And it's not really clean. How many people have worked with somebody else's code and they have no spaces, no returns, and no spaces between code sets? And you look at the code and it's like, oh my God, it's a mess. Kind of like this. How would you clean it up? Anybody know the key trick here? What's the challenge on how to clean up code without manually going through and doing all this? See if we get any comments. Code reindent. I don't even know that one. Oh, wow. I learned, see, this is why I do this. Code reformat is, which package is this for? Styler. Yeah, you guys have it. So if you installed the styler package, you have another set of add-ins, and you can highlight your code and you can go add-ins and go down to the styler add-in, and you can say style selection. And it redoes all the code in traditional format or whatever the thought that they think it should be done. This is still a little weird for me because I like to have returns, so it doesn't work all the time, but it does kind of reformat this. Now, when you run this, your package, your graph will reflect those new themes. So this works really well to set this. So how do you set your own theme? If you copy all of this code right here and paste it down here, and this, what I did here was I set up a theme that has a lot of the things that you might set on a regular basis annotated, so it has font stuff. So if you like Times New Roman instead, you can actually specify that font name up here. This came up earlier where somebody thought you couldn't use these different kinds of fonts, but you can get these names of special fonts up here. You can have plot stuff, axis stuff, and legend stuff. And whatever name of the theme you want it to be, you can name it theme Gleon. So if we run this, now if we run it down here, it gives us an error, gives us this kind of garbage. So you actually have to click outside of these brackets and click run, and it saves a theme over here. So now when you want to have your theme on several graphs, you don't have to have this whole thing behind each graph. So that has been quite helpful in the past. How do you use your own themes now? So somebody had theme classic. Now, if you type theme Gleon, if I could spell, you run this, and it now does the Gleon theme that we set with crazy fonts and things like that. So any questions on that? So this is how you could do your own theme, and you could set that someplace and call it from another library or another script or things like that. Any questions? Nope. Well, as you probably know in R, there's about 100 different ways to do everything, right? This is the way that I've always done it. And what I've learned when I started prepping for this class, and it's why it's fun to do these things, is you could have something called save. Oh, question mark, Jorrit.
I was wondering, how does, so I see you set a lot of the sizes of all the text, which seems indeed very helpful. How does that interact with GG Save, which I often use to save my plots? And I don't know, there seems to be like the settings there seem to affect the sizes as well.
Yeah, so when you save GG theme, it's not scaling the font based on the size of the graph you're saving in GG theme. And that's been a frustrating thing. So if you make a plot that's for a poster that's 10 inches by 10 inches, and you have 14-point font, it looks really small. I've not figured out a way to fix that unless I just do it like test and manually test it. And I always save it out to PDFs because those are scalable. If somebody else has had experience with that, I'd love to hear it. But I haven't figured out a way to do that in the past. But that's a great question. It's been really frustrating. There's a couple things out there, but I haven't seen any good solutions so far. But I'll look for that next time. How to do fonts in different size plots. Yeah, great question. So make sure you ask if you have questions. Rachel across the table is watching that to make sure if there's any chats that come up. What I did learn down here was we can copy that same theme settings, or we could make it, you know, whatever sizes we want so it looks different. You can have it go to a saved theme, and then you can use this. So if we run this, it will do the same kind of thing, but it comes up as a list. And you can use a command called saved theme and pipe it into a saved RDS. I don't know what RDS is, but what it does is it saves it into a folder out here. So the saved theme is here, and it's all right there. So whenever you want to, so if we say, save this over to there, it saves it into this folder, and we can remove this from our environment with RM. Then in the future, when we want to pull that theme back up, we don't have to have all that code at the top of our scripts. We can just have read the theme from the saved file like this, and it pops up here, and we can type in plus theme underscore Gleon2. And we don't need parentheses, and it'll pull that theme up right there. So that's been one of the really fun ways of getting rid of stuff. Any questions on that? So that's making your themes, getting them saved. The ggthemeAssist has been really helpful in kind of reducing Googling of all the different theme settings. So how many people have tried Patchwork or use it regularly? Is there a number of people out there, or who's not heard of Patchwork? Who's not had a lot of experience with it? Few people. This has been, there's a couple ways to make different graphs that are multi-panel. And if you're exploring a data set, what's the way that we could, let's say we have a graph called zoop.plot down here, and we want to plot the same kinds of things. So if we run this and it plots up our zooplankton graph, what if we wanted to plot this and we are just exploring data and we wanted to look at this data by the different sites? What would you do for a quick data exploration? Anybody know? What can you add? What text, one line of text you could add? Facet wrap or facet grid. If we type facet wrap and we say tilde sites or site, and we graph this, it will facet wrap the sites going horizontally. So you could look at dates here versus number of the zooplankton by N2 control, the fertilization side, and Toolik Lake. You could add site tilde, and it would come up like this. Oh, geez, should go sideways, go the other direction. Nope. This is the fun of live coding. I can't remember how it works the other way. Okay, I can't get it to work that way. We could add in facet grid. So facet wrap just kind of wraps it around. If we type in grid, that does it that way. And now it should, if we do it the opposite, tilde dot, now it should do it horizontal. So this is a great way to look at data, see what's there. What if you want to know, and if you have lots of data series and it's really hard to tell what data point is what? Has anybody used ggplotly? This is kind of a fun one. If you type, take this plot and type in ggplotly and zoop.plot. Now notice the graph has come up not in the plots package tab down here, it's come up in the viewer. And if I click zoom and pull this window over here, what you'll notice is that the graph is animated. Now, if we arrow over a point, it tells us exactly which data point that is. And I know what species this is, what number it is, and what date that was. And I can see, okay, there's this point here. It also has a really neat option where you can zoom in. So if we click the zoom function, we can zoom in just on a particular data set. And we can zoom in to even see just small bits of data. And then you can pan around to see what's going around in the different points. So this has been, I think, one of the best ways for me if I'm teaching a class and I want to zoom in on a particular data set to allow me to see all the different data points and highlight different things. So this has been a really great tool, and it works in any type of plot, essentially. You can also, on this panel out here, you can customize what shows up. So if we go down, it was supposed to be a command here. This is where you would test out the ggplotly. If we add in a text setting inside of the AES, so if we said text equals paste site colon, and the name of that column site with a separator of, let's say we wanted an arrow kind of thing, we can do the same kind of plot. And now when we arrow over this, it has what site we've got. So we can add in essentially any kind of text specialization that we want in each of these panels. It's been a really great way to be able to explore data and do that kind of stuff. This is one way to do multi-panel graphs. There's some code out there where you can turn these boxes gray. The problem is if you have different graphs and you want to add in A, B, C for the different panels and make it publication quality, it gets difficult. So there are limits to this. I'm going to get rid of that. So and I've added this in to give us an idea of what's available for Patchwork. And rather than have you type all this out, because there's a lot of code in here, how to specialize colors for a different panel. If we want to see what species are around, we can run a distinct command, and it gives us a list of all of these species. And if we set color equals species, so this graph here, I've just done the fertilization plot. This is all the code we've already run, everything we've seen already. What we're going to do is add in a scale color manual. And because color is in the aesthetics, we can change the name of the legend box. We can change the colors of each of those species, and we can relabel the species that are here. So if we didn't like Bosmina with a lowercase, so if we run this, oh, I've got theme Gleon twice. Let me fix that. If we run this, we get a plot now that has a lot of different colors. Now, a journal probably wouldn't like if you had lowercase Bosmina without it being italicized. So down here, you can retype this as Bosmina C, or Bosmina capitalized C period without the underscore. You could type in Daphnia period space, should be a capital D. So you can rename these labels any way you want, and it comes up over here. If you wanted to change the line type, you would add line type up in the aesthetics to species, and you would have scale underscore line type manual, and you would have the same stuff here, except the values would change to the different types of lines that you wanted to show. So you can customize all of this in a variety of ways. So if we save one plot to N2 fertilized, there's that one. And we have a reference plot for N2 here. This is a different graph. And we have the tulip plot. Now, there's two ways to do multi-panel graphs. There's one set of commands called grid extra, I believe it's called, or a grid command, and that works really well. Patchwork has been probably my favorite to be able to make multi-panel graphs. How would you, if you wanted to make a plot of the N2 reference and N2F plot, how would you do that with Patchwork? See if anybody's awake still. So the beauty of this is all you have to do is add the plots together. So if you say n2f.plot plus n2.r plot. Yep, grid arrange is the other way to do it. And that works really well. I haven't used it much because I found Patchwork and Thomas, the guy that wrote it, who lives in Denmark, to be amazing for making my life easy, and I don't have to learn a lot more things. So if we run these two commands, it puts them like this. That's kind of a mess, right? So what Patchwork allows us to do is modify these plots and do a lot of really cool things really easily. One of the first things we might want to do is say that we want the plots top and bottom. So if we say plot underscore layout, and notice it says up here, it says how many columns, how many rows, the widths, the heights, the guides, and the tag levels. So we can change a lot of things with this, which has been really helpful. So if we say guides, or let's say n col equals 1, now they're on top of one another. If we have the same set of legends for both, we can say comma guides equals collect. Why is that not working? I changed the name. Oh, so when they're not the same legends, my assistant across the hall or across the table is like, you changed the legend up here. So when they're different, it won't collect them. So if I go back here and I copy this back to here, oops, let me just copy the whole thing. Do this and run this and save it. Now when we run this, it's got both plots and it's collected the guides. And if you're publishing this, you need to put in A, B for the two different plots, right? So if we add in plot annotation and we say the tag levels equals A and the tag suffix equals parentheses, or we could say bracket even, it adds in the tag levels up here and you can change those fonts. So it's automatically added A and B in a way that's pretty easy. Now, what else would you want to change? What's kind of messy in here? There's a lot of chart junk, right? So if you've got the x-axis here is the same as the x-axis down here, how could you turn off this legend down here? You can use the theme settings. And the great thing about Patchwork is you can have your saved plot above that you could use individually. And you can also add in here. Let me see if I can find it. You can add in plus theme axis title equals element blank, comma, axis dot text dot x equals, and I'm just going to copy this over here because I can't type this morning. And I hit comma, axis, and well, maybe we don't want to take out the tick marks, but you could add in axis ticks x element blank. We add plus. And what we've done, wait a minute, that should have worked. Now, oh, my assistant just reminded me, I added the remove x-axis to the bottom graph, not to the top graph. So if I take this and cut it and put it up here and click run, then it's got rid of all the axis marks up here. So you can adjust all the theme settings here and change a lot of things as you might want to do. If you wanted to change you might not like the A's and the B's, right? They're not bold, they're not really big. You want them to be a different font. Patchwork has recently added in some new things called theme, and this adjusts the Patchwork theme settings. You can say plot.tag element text color equals, let's make it purple. And we've got the face of it equals bold, comma, and the size equals 35 will be silly. So we can change a lot of those settings individually or for the whole settings. I'm not sure why it did just a B on this case. It should have done, in the past I've done this, it's done all of them. And I think it's because I've changed something else, but this typically works on all of the commands that I've done in the past. Of course, live coding, things break. But this is a way that you can change. Let me try it and see what happens. There. So we can do each plot tag level, different fonts. I just added the theme setting to the top so that it'll change the font setting up there. So Patchwork's been a really great tool in allowing us to put graphs together. And we can save that with GGSave. The name of the plot, if we had named this final.plot, and copy this down here. We save that name of the plot over here, and then we can save this plot into figures and have it set up to the proper size. So if we look in figures, this plot should show up. What did I mess up? Final 50 warning. So it didn't save for some reason. Should have done. So I really messed up something, which is always the way live coding. And that's what comes out. So I've broken something, not clean. So I have no idea what I broke, which is the unfortunate part. Question so far. Why use PDF instead of PNG? One of the reasons is when you bring this file, let me get rid of the extra theme settings. Let's see if this works better this way. And save it. And if I go over to, hopefully this comes out right. No, this is really weird. The reason that I use PDFs is it's scalable. So if you bring this into PowerPoint, it will rescale the fonts and all the parts of the image evenly if you use the bottom right corner or one of the corners and move it so it's adjustable. It comes out so it doesn't change a lot of the features of it. Let me try quick and see if I can get it to come out this way. Save. See if it came out. Now I broke something on my computer. It doesn't like to export PDFs. The height and width are not enough. It should be 18. Let's make it 18. Units, inches. Let me say it's PDF, figures, final.plot. No, I've really broken something in my system. Lauren, did you have a question?
Oh, I don't know if this is helpful for troubleshooting, but I was going to say that is what I saw in the PDF of the figure even before it started. So it's not necessarily you broke something you broke in live coding.
Yeah.
It might have been there before. So
Yeah, it's really strange. I haven't had this problem before, and it might be something to do with the font being Times New Roman. That's really weird. Let me check one thing really quick. Let me get rid of this. Could be a font issue that I've got. Let me try really quick. Saved theme. I hate it when I break things, but when I break things, I learn something. So it's always not terrible. And that should be regular fonts. And then I can make the mix. There's that. And I can save the theme. And then it should be working to, I saved it as final.plot2. So if we go over to here, our projects, GGPlot, figures. So it appears that it was a problem with the size of the font text. So by using Times New Roman, exporting it to PDF didn't work. And this is what Jorrit was talking about. The fonts come out really small when you save it to a really big picture. And if I were to go into PowerPoint, make a blank presentation, get rid of all the garbage, stop suggesting pretty pictures. And if I put this in here, what happens is once you have it in like this, you can resize this and it resizes pretty well, whereas it was a PNG, sometimes it doesn't resize in the proper way, at least the experience that I've had. So if I had 8 inches for each font, run here and back to here. So if I do that, so now when you have it in here like this, you can resize it and everything the symbols kind of scale according to the text as well. Thank you, Rachel. So does that work for everybody? Pretty good, not too bad. Now, what if you wanted to have species ordered in different fashions? What if you wanted this to be alphabetical or in some different order for different orders? Has anybody tried to do that? And how would you change the order of your series down here? And maybe even in some cases, lump them all so that the ones that are really uncommon, like this heterocope, you combine into a mix of others. Anybody tried doing that? So Val Vackenberg, so factors. So you guys have probably already done this using factors to reorder things. So if you change these to factors, that's been one of the best ways. And we could reorder the names of the species. And if we said z.df, pipe mutate species equals as underscore factor species. Now what happens is up here, species is a character, so it knows that it's categorical. If you have numbers, they will show up as a gradient on the legend. And if we run this, now we have species as a factor. And this can get messy when you're plotting. What you see is Bosmina C underscore SCUTT or D long or D mid. What's really behind the scenes is this is a 1, this is a 2, and this is a 3. And you can reorder these, and you can see if you're exploring data, you can say levels, z.df $species, and it'll show you all the different names of the factors that you have. And if you want to reorder them, what I found to be the best way to do this, I'm going to take this, copy it down here, and I'm going to say mutate species equals FCT. This is the package for cats. And I'm going to say relevel. And then I'm going to say, I want to do the species column, comma, and then you have to put the names here exactly as they appear. And if you mistype them, you end up with a real mess. So I usually copy these because I do typos all the time, paste them up here and put a comma like this. And then you can just drag or cut these and put them over here and put a comma. And then when you look at the levels, they're reordered. So it's a great way to reorder your levels. You can use a lot of different ways. And then Jorit said dput levels z.df and species. And that would also work as a different way to change the order of the factors as well. That's a really cool way to do it. And then you can plot those reordered series and do all that kind of stuff. So that was the main thing that I was going to talk about in reordering the factors. If you really want to play with it, here's like a final graph that somebody might do with changing all of this. Now, one of the questions somebody had that was in the response was, how do you change these labels? So there's a scales package in Tidyverse as well. And if you want to change that legend, if it's date, you can change it as a date. If it's a date time, you need to change this to a date time setting. So if we have this plot that we used before for Tulik, and we have all this information on the different kinds of species that have been reordered, if we want to add in a different type of scale, we can add in scale underscore x underscore date. And what this does is it says you want to reorder this and relabel the x-axis with a different set of tick marks and different label formats. So in Excel, this has been really difficult because it's using number of seconds since 1900 if you're on a PC. So trying to sort that out can be tough. If we said we want 1 month, we could type month here. And the label format uses this key, and you can see more information if you type in question mark strip time. It has all these abbreviations to change what you see. So if we run this again, now we have the breaks by month. And the great thing is if you wanted it by 1 week, you could run this and it will give you week breaks. And you can rotate them at 45 degrees so you could read them. If you only wanted to see and you wanted year without century, you could add in %y. And it would add in the year someplace back in there. So this has been really useful to reorder and reformat the x-axis. If you have, instead of date right here, you had date time, you need to change this from scale underscore x underscore date to date time. So you would add in time here if time was one of your x-axis. So that's been one of the more useful ways to work with date functions on the x-axis. Questions? Jorit.
I'm I'm looking at your line 414, 415, where you set the labels.
Yep.
I'm not. Let's assume that later on you decide to rearrange your factors above and you kind of forgot to update it. I'd be really afraid that heterocope is no longer coupled to the. Is there a way of adding that into there?
Not that I know of. And it has caught me off guard in the past. And it also happens if you're doing the scale manual and you can not use this. So if I were to comment all of this out, get rid of this comma and get rid of this, it reverts to the names that are in the column and uses the factor in the order. So the safest way, if you're not in a rush and doing things and you're never reordering it, is to make a new column using the species name in the order that you want and use that. And that's been the safest way that I've seen. This is a way to do it that's manual. If I were really sharing code and worried that people might change the factor orders, what I would do is make a new column with the full genus species names. And Jora is really good with that. Here's a question for you guys. What's the easiest way to do that? What if you wanted to make a new column and you wanted to rename all of your names here to these names? Mutate. And mutate with what though? And I used to do this and I found a new command that was really helpful. Anybody know this one? So let's say we wanted to do this, and Jorrit has a super excellent point. What if we had z.df and we're going to make a new column, pipe, and we're going to say mutate, or we could do a couple things. We could do an if then or an if else statement or an if then statement. If this, then make it this. What I would do is call it full species as a new column equals case when. Has everybody seen this before? Case when is a great command. Case when allows you to make a table of genus species names that works really well. So if we said case when, and we know that this is the species column. So if we said species equal, quote, hetero, let's say header, we would make it called heterocope. We could say comma, species, and I'll show you another trick. What if you didn't want to type out a lot of stuff and you type in species names like this? There is a neat trick that you could say species equal, quote, tilde, quote, comma. And then you can go down here and clean that up. This kind of, I learned all this stuff on rstats hashtag on Twitter. It's the only thing I use Twitter for. That and Gleon, of course. If you hold down the Option key or the Alt key, you can highlight vertically, and you can highlight whole sets of code vertically, and you can say, well, this should be species, and it retypes in big blocks all at once, which is a really handy thing. So if we had header, holo, and let's say we call this holo something, I don't even know what it is. I don't do zooplankton. The end statement here is true tilde, quote, other. And this is a neat way to, if you only want to work with heterocope and holo something, and you want all the others to be called other, if you run this, it adds a new column called full species names. And anything that was called a heterocope comes out and holo something comes out. And then everything else gets coded as other. So this is a great way to recode some of these commands. And Plier is another way. I think Plier might be in the process of being deprecated by Hadley as being a package that's not used that much. And you could use I haven't tried using a color list like Val Valkenburg is talking about here, where site 1 equals red, site 2 equals blue. That might be another way to do this too, which I haven't tried. And again, that's the beauty of R and doing these classes, is I always learn something new too. So those are the main things I was going to talk about on how to use Plotly, how to use themes, and how to use Patchwork. Questions on that stuff that people want to look at? Because we're at an hour. One of the other things that I was working with a grad student over in Tanzania on Lake Tanganyika, and we needed to plot, and now I'm doing a lot of stuff in soils where we have the data for like dissolved oxygen and temperature going across the top axis and depth going down the y-axis. Is that something people are interested in, or are you interested in bar plots or markdown tables? I also have this thing in using mean and standard error plots with stat summaries that you can look through. Do you want to do, what would you like to do next? Do you want to do the graphing with depth? I mean, I set this for kind of an hour with, let's go somewhere else. So Galena says yes, she's in the department next to me. Simone says yes. So let's look at this plot. I'm going to close this one. I'll save it. Close this. I'm going to use the broom to clean up all this garbage, get rid of everything. And so we're back to clean. So this is graphing with depth. Hadley is a pain. One of the questions was how to use a second y-axis. And Hadley doesn't believe you should use a second y-axis. So thus you can't use a second y-axis unless you can recode the data to be some linear recombination of the original data. It is frustrating. I have not found a way around it, and it is terrible. So again, I can't spell. So let's run this code. Let me grab my full script cheat sheet so I can, I'm going to pop this out and hide it over here so you can't see what I'm doing. If you haven't used this, it's a great way to hide things from other people so they think you're smart and you're coding this all from memory. So we'll use tidyverse, all the same libraries, they should be loaded. And we'll use, and if you have, everybody knows how to pivot data from wide to long format and long to wide format. So ggplot really likes to have data in this format that looks something like this, where it's got the site, the date, the year, month, and it has depth here, and it has all the different variables. And instead of having the variables listed across. So this is called a long format. Wide format would be if you had a column for temperature, conductivity, dissolved oxygen, chlorophyll, and Secchi going across the top. There's some really fun ways to pivot it long. For this class, I wasn't going to focus on that. What if we wanted just to look at temperature in 1990 for Toolik Lake? We could make a new data frame called temp. And how would we plot just the data for 1990, 07, 03 for Toolik Lake and of temperature versus depth? And here we've got date, and there's a trick in this one. How would you filter date for that time? So if we take temp.df, and we say filter date equal quote 1990-07-03. And we can, if I actually typed filter. So if we run this, what's going to happen? Will it work? And this will show us the data down below. It's not supposed to work. That shouldn't have worked. When I do things the wrong way, it shouldn't have worked. Typically what I do is say year, month, day in front of it, like this. That actually is bomb-proof. The other technique used to not work at least a month ago from what I've tried. And if so we've got that all done, and we type in pipe, and we say filter. And I believe in this one, we only have temperature, so we don't need to filter the temperature. Say ggplot, AES, y equals value, comma, x equals depth. And we could even type, if we wanted to, we could say variable equals temp, call it temp underscore C. And we type in plus geom underscore point plus geom underscore line. And it's depth underscore meter. This is why having a controlled vocabulary works better. So we get something like this. But we really want to have depth on the y-axis here going in reverse, and we want the value going across. So if we change this to be x, and we type this to be y, and we run it, look what happens. We end up having the value across here. So we've got more oxygen at 0, but see what happens here is the numbers are not quite plotting in the right order. And if you haven't had this problem, it is extremely frustrating. So what I've found is that you can't use the line command when you plot depth in this way. What you have to use is the path command, and you have to make sure the data is arranged in the right order. And this follows the path of the data as it's in the data frame. And if you plot this, then it plots the data in the correct way. So we can do this, and you can see where it's messing up here and it's messing up here. And if you have some really strange data points, it's worse. So that's one way to do this. If you didn't want to type a lot of things, what's the best way to flip the graph from this format so that X is, or that there's another way we could have done this. I'll back up. This was Y and this was X. We could have added plus chord flip. So if we highlight this code and run it like this, without chord flip, this is what we get. And we really want to make sure that it's just rotated clockwise by 90 degrees. That's what chord flip does for us. Now we've got the plot we want, except what it thinks now is, I believe the y-axis is not reversed right, and the values are across the top. What I found is this ends up being extremely messy. If you want, so here's the code down here. We can use geom path with chord flip. This is line 72. So this works. We can add in plus scale underscore X underscore reverse, and it gets our plot to be kind of correct. So we're pretty close to it. And if we want to put the values data up to the top, we can type, and what's weird is it still thinks the depth is the x-axis. That's where it gets to be a little frustrating. If we type scale underscore y underscore reverse, or scale continuous, position equals right, it puts it on top because it still thinks the graph is in its normal position. To me, this is really frustrating. So this is challenge 2 and 3. Reverse would get it there, and top would put it on the top. This to me is a nightmare because I can't remember what's X, what's Y. Things are in the wrong order and things become a mess. So if we go down here and we type in the X value is going to go across the X top and Y equals depth, we can type plus geom underscore path plus scale underscore X underscore continuous position equals top. Now it knows all of the orders of things and the way they should be going. So this is how you would do a depth plot where you're going from, you want depth going down and values going across the top. There's 2 quick notes. Has anybody heard of the problems if you change, let's say we wanted plus scale underscore y underscore continuous, and we said limits equals, and here you have to go in reverse order, it would be 15 comma 0. Scale y continuous limits equals C. And again, this is all just from memory. Now I'm really messing things up. So if you use the scale, the point was if you use scale continuous and set limits there, it actually removes data. And it cuts data off from the series that you have. So if I did, let me copy this over here. Flag X, comma, V, get rid of this. So if we only wanted to show the scale X to go from 0 to 12, why is this giving me, what did I break? Error in scale position equals top. So if we do that, it actually cuts the data off and removes it. And it can be extremely dangerous. If you said 15, you're getting the right values and now it's really messed up. You should not use the limit settings here. In my experience, you should use chord Cartesian to zoom in on a graph, and that would reset the limits. That was a nightmare. Any questions on doing graphs in this way with the values going across the top and the depth going down? Scale, and I need to add in scale underscore y underscore continuous, or scale y reverse, sorry. So that's what the graph should look like. So now we've got the depth going down from 0, and we've got the data going from 12 degrees, 14 degrees Celsius, showing the thermocline down to the deep 15-meter hole. Yeah, and I can't spell, Jorah, it's catching me good. Thank you for letting me know, because typing is not my best thing. It's sometimes at 8 in the morning. If you want to do mean and standard error plots, say you wanted to look at the mean temperature in July here as means and a standard error plot with the error going horizontal, we can do that too if you want to do that. What I try doing this out of the raw data set with a stat summary command, and it's turned into kind of a mess. So I typically will summarize the data using the summarize command, and I'll make a new data frame with, say, standard deviation. One of the trick commands, if you have missing data, using a standard error command, a regular standard error calculation doesn't really work because the length statement for the square root doesn't work. This will allow you to collect all the numbers that are not NAs. So if we make a new data table of just the mean temperatures in July, where we have depth, mean temperature, standard deviation, and standard error, using this command here, we can recode this to get a plot that shows this data frame here, and we can pipe it into the mean on the X, the Y on the depth, geom point with horizontal error bars that take the minimum and the maximum, the mean minus the standard error, the mean plus the standard error. We can add in the height of the tips of those bars, make sure they're black, geom path, Y reverse, and the scale X is continuous with the position on the top, and we end up with a plot that looks something like that. So we get the mean and standard error in all of July and see that there is some variation in the shallow depths, and there's almost no variation at deep spots. And this is just, if you wanted to do it in stat summary, this is how you would do it. Stat summary is a great command if you haven't used it to get mean and standard error plots, but it doesn't work doing this kind of plot. And you actually have to use a chord flip, which messes up my head usually. And that would look something like this. And it tends not to look quite as neat as the other one. And for some reason, the values are coming out slightly different. But it's a way to get a quick estimate looking at this mean and standard error using the chord flip command, which is down here. So that's a really quick thing on doing depth with on the y-axis and the values going across the top. Those were the main things that I thought I'd go over. And if there's other questions that people had, this was going to be kind of an open question answer time. I think we got through most of the stuff I was hoping to a little faster than I thought I would. Any other things you want to talk about? Any questions, general stuff? There was one question on how to make tables in R. I have used the R Markdown feature with a package called Cable and Cable Extra, but it doesn't export to Word well. The tables don't come out in Word, and I can show you a quick summary of that if people were interested. But those are the main things that I wanted to go through. If there's other questions for future kinds of code, and I can leave this repository up on GitHub. And if you have things that you're like, I don't know how to do this, can you add in a vignette up there that does something like this? I can add those in. Anybody have topics? An hour of R coding straight can be kind of debilitating after a while. People lose focus. Anything else? Looking at the chat. I haven't tried the officer package for creating word tables. That's a new one that I'll try. There is another package out there that's also recommended that I haven't used before either. R Markdown is a great way if you're doing repetitive reports and things like that to make live documents. Some people are using it to write live manuscripts now. I haven't quite gotten to that level of coding yet to do that. And you can also use it to make PowerPoints or PDFs that you use screens with. My data tends to vary all over the board, so I haven't found it to be that useful. but I'll look at the officer package. I'll see if I can learn some of that, and I'll try to add up, because I know a couple people were asking about tables. If you've got some code that you want to share with that, I'd love to see what it looks like. Other questions? Everybody's really quiet. This is why I hated teaching on Zoom. Anything else people wanted to work on? Other than that, pretty well done. And feel free to contact me if there's questions, or you're like, I don't understand your code here and your typing is terrible. That's great. So thanks, Lauren. If you have questions and want to do more, let me know. I do have some stuff on my website on how to do heat maps from buoy data, or data from this kind of using hand measurements over time. But we can work on some of those in the future. The grad students at Miami Oxford had covered this in one of the last ones. Great, thank you. I'll quit recording if I can find that button, and I'll stop share.